sourdough bread has by far been the most addictive thing for me to do. The idea of combining water and flour together and having an amazing product in the end is by far something that's so addictive, and it's the process that's addictive. I mean, depending if you have the patience to do it, of course. I mean, the process of feeding your yeast on a daily basis and how you see it grow. I mean, basically you're taking care of a living thing, and that living thing will give you that final product. Be sure that you take a look at my previous video of how I made the sourdough culture itself, because you can't get started without it. So without further ado, let's get started. Okay, so this recipe was inspired by a recipe book on how to raise a loaf, a book which I highly recommend, especially for beginners. Before we get started, here's some essential tools that you're going to need. First, a weighing scale. Next is a bench scraper, a very crucial kitchen tool in making your sourdough. Third, a plastic bench scraper. Next is what I call a baker's blade or a lame. I actually have no idea why they call it a lame. Anyway, next you have a Benetton basket. Of course, you can use a glass Tupperware, but be sure you flour it generously before placing the sourdough on it. Of course, it does come in different shapes and sizes. I'm doubling the quantity of 2 loaves, but the description I'm giving you is enough for 1 loaf. First thing you want to do is add 300 ml of lukewarm water. Now this is the crucial part of making your sourdough, which is your starter. I have a sourdough starter which I have been constantly feeding for the past week. You want to be sure that it's at a peak level. Now we're going to do a float test to see if the starter is well conditioned and at its peak level. If it floats, then you're good to go, and it means that your yeast is lively and healthy. Whisk your yeasty water and set it aside. In a large stainless bowl, add in 450 grams of strong white flour and 50 grams of stone ground rye flour. Keep in mind that I've doubled that amount to equal 2 loaves of bread, but the original recipe, they're only using white flour, but of course the option is yours. Then you're going to add your yeasty water mixture, and gently you're going to start mixing everything together. While you're mixing it, it will start to get challenging and sticky. When that happens, just wet your hands and continue mixing thoroughly. Up to this point, you'll start to have a sticky, shaggy dough, which is completely normal. Whatever you do, do not add any more flour. Just keep mixing and be sure that you covered all the pocket spaces of dry flour mixture. Up to this point, you should have a nice, sticky dough. Now this is the autolyse period. Cover your dough and let it rest for 45 minutes. After 45 minutes, you're going to do the stretch and fold technique. Start off by wetting your hands and stretch and fold your dough at a 45-degree angle on each side. Cover and rest, and do the same process again after 30 minutes. So to summarize everything, after your 45-minute autolyse period, you're going to stretch and fold, then rest for 30 minutes, stretch and fold, then rest for 30 minutes, then do the same process one last time. Then let your dough rest for one last time. After 1 hour, you're going to start to shape your dough. Of course, as I mentioned earlier, I have doubled the portion of this recipe, which is equal to 2 loaves. I'm going to stretch out my dough and divide it as evenly as possible. Next, I'm going to flour my surface, but not too much. Next, gently lift your dough from one side and fold it into the other half. Then bring the other side to fully overlap and cover the first side that you have folded. Then, you're going to fold it again and gently tuck it tightly. Twist and fold with your bench scraper, lightly, then flour your Benetton basket. Gently lift up your dough and place it into the basket. Be sure to flour the edges as well to avoid it from sticking into the fabric during the proofing period. I'm gonna then do the same thing with the other dough, except I'll be rolling it with oats and flax seeds. Then we are going to cover and rest for 2 hours. You can of course do a slow proofing process by just putting your sourdough into the chiller for overnight. After 2 to 3 hours, you're ready to bake your loaves. Start off by lining up a parchment paper large enough to easily fit it in one loaf. You're also going to notice that if your loaf has proofed well, that will slightly bounce back if you gently poke it. Flip your Benetton basket quickly upside down and be sure that it's aligned in the middle of the parchment paper. Then, using your blade, you're going to gently score the loaf from the top to the bottom. This is going to help the dough rise and proof well in the oven while baking. In a preheated cast iron pot, place the dough in the pot. Just be sure not to burn yourself. Remember, it should be screaming hot. Okay guys, so far our sourdough has been in the oven for around 30 minutes at a temperature of 250. The reason why I'm adding it to 250 is because this is an electronic oven. Of course, it differs between 200 to 250 depending on what type of oven you're using. But now is the moment of truth. Now we'll be able to know whether we actually screwed it up or made it right. Because now we're gonna check and see if the oven spring has occurred. What is the oven spring? You'll see right now. 3, 2, 1, and... That's exactly what you guys want. So as you guys can see, we're just gonna leave this exposed for another like 5 to 6 minutes, and it's gonna crisp up a little bit from the outside, and that's our sourdough ready. Okay guys, so the next step right now is to let the dough rest, because you won't be able to slice it properly once it's straight out of the oven, because it's still steaming hot. So we're just gonna let this rest for about an hour or so, and then we'll check back on it. But so far it looks amazing. And now comes the moment of truth. Slicing the bread. Great crispy texture on the outside, nice and fluffy from the inside. You can also see the air bubbles forming as well. Now let's dig in and see how it tastes like. So I'm gonna slice me one piece and pop it in the toaster. Next, I'm gonna be adding some cream cheese, some sliced onions. Get creative, do as you like. And maybe some smoked salmon, and why not? Maybe add in some fresh dill as well. I'm gonna do another one with butter and jam, which is my favorite. Okay guys, let's have a taste test. Okay guys, and we're done. I know it's a long process, but the end product is worth it, as you guys can see, and it's amazing. Thank you guys so much for watching this video up until the end. Whether it's a travel vlog or a cooking vlog, I'll see you guys on the next video. Assalamu alaikum.